Oh, hello, Chuck.
Hi, Bettina.
Hello to Hawaii. Thank you so much for so spontaneously having time for us for this live today.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be here.
So, as everybody knows right now, Austria is kind of in the talks. We are in this pandemic worldwide since 20 months, all of us affected. And the reason why we are meeting today is to really, kind of dive a little bit into this theme and see what is needed to go through that. We here in Austria had a huge thing going on since yesterday, which is the mandatory vaccination.
Mm-hmm.
And this, of course, brings up very much in people a lot of fear, kind of a pandemic of fear. Vaccinated people are fearful, non-vaccinated people are fearful. So
Right.
this is why people are really kind of asking, what is Chuck saying to this?
Mm-hmm.
So please, Chuck.
Well, it's a time of, lots of fear is coming up and lots of death temptation. And because fear actually leads you away from life and toward death. So it's realizing like all of this is on the table, but it's also a time of great opportunity. In the Hindu religion, they talk about the Kali Yuga, the darkest age, but they say it's the time where you can make your greatest spiritual growth, even though it's so dark around you. And psychology of vision is a transpersonal or a spiritual psychology. And to put it simply, it's about love and happiness. And so it doesn't matter what religion or what rituals you practice. What matters is it really powerful in the sense that it brings love? Does it bring happiness? And those two things cut through fear. Love heals fear. So let's take you, Bettina. What percentage would you say you're fearful? Because you're tuned into the collective right now, not just Austria, but the world.
80%.
80%. So name somebody you love.
My mom.
So there's your mom. Okay. I hope she's listening in to hear this, and maybe you'll get a bigger present for Christmas. See, and humor helps dispel the fear. But now there's 80% of fear, but what's more important, your fear or your mom?
Mom.
So would you step through that fear to love your mom? Good. How does that feel? That rings a bell?
It dissolves everything.
So what percentage fear is left now?
3.
So who comes to your mind that you could forgive?
Brother.
Your brother, your monkey brother. So would you just forgive your brother? It's just, whatever you have against anyone, you have against yourself. Because everyone in the world, this is the unconscious or soul mind, everyone in the world represents a part of our mind. And it's a part of our mind that we judged. And then we didn't want to feel that because that guilt, that self-judgment. So we projected out on the world. And then, who's around us that we can project that on? Well, brother's convenient, pin the tail on the donkey, the old American, birthday game. So because to forgive him is to forgive yourself, is to forgive sometime in the past or even the ancient past lifetimes figure into this, or at least that metaphor is all in people's minds. And when you have somebody that you're against, like this dilemma of two sides going at each other, basically both sides are an illusion. It's like, and so one of the things that you can do, and I'll talk about a number of solutions, but one of the things you can do with this dilemma, which starts when we're little kids, is like, who are we going to love more, mom or dad? And it creates this dilemma in our mind. It creates the Oedipal conspiracy. It creates competition. But it's like the answer is both. And so if you can invite truth, because truth is all inclusive, invite truth into that dilemma of two sides. So that's a solution, because actually when the ego sets up these kinds of things, because when you have a conflict, it's coming from a conflict inside. It's mirroring our mind. And right now we have opened up the unconscious in the last couple of years. And I've been talking about this for the last 10 years, that we were going to reach this place and where the unconscious comes up. And that can be really scary. Dungeons and dragons, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. But the greatest treasures, the greatest gifts that we've covered over because we were afraid. But now it's time to be courageous. And like the French word, the cœur, from the heart, courage, it comes from love. So it's all about learning how to come to a new level of love within ourselves, because we can help the whole world by helping whatever process is going on within us. So as you forgive your brother, hello, dear brother, it's like when you forgive someone, you forgive yourself. The world is a great mirror. I wrote a whole book on that. The world is the mirror of your soul. The Course in Miracles has quotes about that whole thing. But it also keeps saying there is nothing to fear and truth will settle every problem. Now, if you invite it, it's always waiting for us. So as you forgive him, some hidden part of you, some buried part of you gets released, and you both get innocent. To regain heaven on earth, paradise, you would have the forgiven world. Now, in A Course in Miracles, it talks about looking out at the world through Christ's eyes. So let's just try this. This is a transpersonal exercise. Invite Christ into your mind. And you can invite Buddha or Kuan Yin. They're all on the same bowling team. They all switch off for each other. Whenever anybody needs somebody that looks like Buddha, they send in Buddha, or if they need his little brother, they send in me, or whatever they need. It's all there. So it's like, invite Christ into your mind and let him look out through your eyes at a forgiven world, at a world where everyone is innocent. Everyone is doing their very best with what they know. We're all on the same team. Buckminster Fuller, the scientist, said, we're all on spaceship Earth. We're all in the same spaceship. Let's help each other. So as you look out on a forgiven world, as you look out on a world made of love, what does it look like to you?
Innocent, like little children playing.
Yeah. And doing their best to find their way. Whenever there's fear, it shows there's an illusion. Mm-hmm. And when we have separated as kids, as teenagers, as adults, what happens is it creates fear. Now, we brought in fear ancestrally. We brought in fear from our past lives, and that can all be healed just as easy as anything else. People think, oh, that's impossible. No, it's not impossible. I've been doing that stuff since the 70s. And so it can be done. The Course in Miracles says perception is not a mirror. It's perception is a mirror. It's not a fact. Each person has their own view of the world, and it's coming from our mind. And we can change our mind. That's the power we have. We can change our mind, and your happiness radiates, your peace radiates out to the rest of the world. How much more peaceful do you feel?
80.
Yeah. Recently, I saw a video, Lindsay and I saw a video called Life After Life by Dr. Raymond Moody. Now, I'd known of him for decades, and Dr. Ritchie was also on that. And and they both talked about the experience of life after life. In other words, when you're out of your body, and I had that experience of being out of my body and heading down that corridor, and then decided I've never given up. Let's turn back. So I turned back and came back into my body, and oh, was it sore, So anyhow, but they all talked about when they got to the light, it was the most wonderful experience of all. They were at peace. They didn't want to come back, but they were said, not your time. You still have more to do. Go back. But they were just there was so much love. And they saw, relatives and friends and things like that waiting to greet them. But it was being with that light. So it's like, death being the greatest fear, and death, God is the principle of life. Do you think he created death? As we say in the States, NFW. It's like God's the principle of life, but the ego wants to polarize everything, because he'll create an opposite. If there's love, he creates fear. If there's love, he creates hate. If there's life, he creates death. And so it's our egos. And every place we separated, the ego tries to get us to believe. Now that sets up a self-defeating pattern. The ego tries to get us to believe that it's a sin. And what does it say in the Bible? The wages of sin are death. But it's not the truth. Yeah, it's the truth that we go through it. That's our lessons. That's our great video game called life, to raise our awareness and our consciousness to have it be better for not only for ourselves, but for everyone. So there's so much we can do. And when you're not happy, which is our greatest purpose, then you're called to heal. So how do you get to peace? Well, forgiveness brings you peace. Forgiveness brings love and happiness. In A Course in Miracles, it calls it practical love, forgiveness. And basically, everything, it's like it says in the Course, everything you give to yourself. Now, the reason I keep talking about A Course in Miracles is in the 70s, I made all these discoveries that wasn't written anyplace in psychological literature. And all of a sudden, as I start reading the Course, it's like it was all there. Almost everything I had discovered was there, and a lot more. And then I was able, because I found ways to get into the subconscious and unconscious and change the mind. What I found was it was so amazing. And so I became a student of A Course in Miracles. And then it had a lot more in the spiritual level that I hadn't considered, that I hadn't been aware of. See, the great wars, when you get into the unconscious, there's a part of the mind that has great wars. And the number one war is life and death. But in most of the great wars, there is basically only one of them is true. Like life is true, like God is life. And all there is God, really. The rest we made up. And I say all these things because these were the principles that I could use to help people get out of their deepest problems. So when you have chronic problems, you somehow mistakenly believe you're a sinner. And in the Course, it says, God's final judgment, the final judgment. We've all been afraid of the final judgment. Oh my God, we die, we go up there. But they said, those 6 people, and Dr. Moody interviewed thousands of people. He said, all of them said the same thing. They have a life review. Their life passes before their eyes, and it's all, holographic. It's all simultaneous, and they see it all. Like Dr. Ritchie, when he died, he died when he was 20. And he ended up in a pile of bodies. He was in the military, he ended up in a pile of bodies. He died of pneumonia. And all of a sudden he comes finding his way out of this pile of bodies. And across the room was this clerk, this black man typing away. And all of a sudden he comes pulling out of this pile of bodies. He said, that black guy turned white. He said, but he said, when I was up there, he said, I found this loving presence that I experience as Christ. And he kept looking at me and goes, well, show me your life. What was it about? And he goes, I don't have much to show. I'm only 20. Give me some time, but basically he said, when he was looking at me, when this light it was all telepathic, he said, he was asking me, how much love did you give? How kind were you? How much did you help others? And that was the question. And that's how your joy adds up. Because love comes from joy. Yeah, and we all make mistakes. I made all of the classic mistakes. And I go, it was good for research, because I survived to tell you there's a way out. There's a way out of heartbreaks. There's a way out of shattered dreams. There's a way out of trauma. And so I've tried to write books to leave these ideas behind. They free you. But up in the unconscious, we have these great wars, life and death, hope and despair, abundance and scarcity. And we get caught in this, and in any conflict, evolution stops, growth stops, because we're frightened. And when you're in a dilemma, when you're in a fight and you're fighting the other person, you're reinforcing them. That's what attack does. It reinforces. And then people get defensive. They hunker down and they're not open. They don't listen. And they just believe. And all of our beliefs come from our ego. So if I were to ask you, Bettina, how many great wars do you have between love and death, or life and death? Same thing.
300.
300. Now seems pretty insurmountable, right? Now, the other side of the mind, which is what the ego is trying to keep us from, is our mastery mind, where there's much greater peace, where all of these things have come together. So you can ask heaven's help here. So who would you like to call in of your friends in high places?
Michael.
Mary, Christ, Buddha, Kuan Yin.
Michael, my friend.
Michael the Archangel. All right. So take Michael's hand and come up to those great wars. And the thing is, when you approach them, they'll split apart. There's two sides. Here's life, here's death. So what percentage, having 300 of these great wars, were you secretly, unconsciously having a death temptation?
220.
220. Well, I'm glad we're doing this exercise now. So imagine walking with Michael down through the center of this. There's death on one side, there's life on the other. And when you get about halfway, how does it look and feel?
Secure, I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, Michael, he has his flaming sword of truth.
Yeah.
Nothing can touch you. So you continue walking on till you're about 3/4 of the way. How does that feel?
I'm kind of excited going forward.
Yeah. It's like in A Course in Miracles, it says, God would not leave you comfortless. You're his precious child. And the final judgment is that you're my precious child. You're just as I created you. Love, light, innocence. So now, and that melts the ego. Any one of those things melt the ego. So now you've gotten past it, and walk about 10 extra steps with Michael. And when you look back, what happened to that war, that dilemma?
So
Yeah, it disappears. And now there's a part of your mind that is at peace. So let's do this. How many great wars do you have between vaccination and anti-vaccination, for whatever reason?
3 million.
3 million. Yeah. So what do you think if your mind got past this? What do you think would happen to everybody else's mind? You would start radiating out.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Now these great wars are piled on top of each other like crepes. You know, it's 3 million of them. 3 million of those suckers. Looks impenetrable. Looks like we can't get through it. But here you are with Michael in front of them. And Michael takes you in his arms and he lifts you up and he flies you over them to the other side, to the peace of mind that is your heritage, that is deep within us all. Another whole new level. God, here's a quote from the Course. God covers me with kindness and with care. And he holds in love the sun he shines upon, who also shines on him. How does that feel?
Relieved.
You know, what we look on in the world is our state of mind projected outward. You know, in university, one of my degrees is in philosophy, so I was studying all these models of the world. But, you know, I'm kind of a practical person in the sense that, does it grow corn? As the First Nations Sun Bear said, you know, because all these young men would approach him with these visions. And he said, but does it grow corn? I was looking for something that would help people out of their pain. You know, it's what I wanted to do, how to get people out of their pain, physical pain, emotional pain. The one book I wrote, Healing Comes from the Heart, was meant to get people be able to get people out of physical pain, not just emotional pain, but physical pain. Because our physical pain, it's like if you took away the physical pain, which is a distraction the ego uses to take you away from what really hurts, from what's really suffering. You know, so as we get older, we have all these aches and pains and all this other stuff because there are things that is still suffering inside us. So we could go to a certain physical pain and we could just set that aside for a moment and ask ourselves, what's really suffering in me? What really needs help? What really needs love and understanding and comfort? And in so many spiritual texts, the Bible, it's in Course in Miracles, other spiritual, it says, God is saying, I will not leave you comfortless. The place where the unconscious is welling up like it is, like I saw it coming, you know, to get people who were healed enough, who are whole enough to say, this is the way, this will work. Here, let me help you. Let's go together. because we all go together. We go together, you and I. They're all our brothers and sisters. And, our beliefs, which can separate us, our beliefs are part of the ego. So it's like to move through our beliefs, because on the other side of our ego, when Buddha first broke through and became enlightened, and I want to make a distinction between enlightenment and God realization, which is being in the garden. Okay, he reached enlightenment, which he saw it's all a dream. And then he said, it's all a dream. And he realized, I'm the dreamer. And there's no part of the world that didn't come from my mind. So these are deep things, but these are things that you could win back, because this is your power to be able to help yourself, to realize heaven's help for you, and to help others, because we're all moving forward together. And now we've reached some really difficult times. Back in the 80s, I had found, because being so deep in the mind, I could see from the first fall out of oneness, out of heaven, the first fall, and then there were hundreds of falls. And each one led us into a place of darkness and shattered dreams. And that's even before we took on lifetimes. And so, but this is all illusion. If there's fear, there's illusion. So we can use our fear to say, oh, this needs healing. And when you see somebody who's acting really darkly, really negatively, it's like they're just calling for help. If you look out at the world, it's either love or a call for love. I think when Jesus was on the cross, he said it perfectly. He just goes, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Forever taking what was considered evil and putting it into the realm of ignorance. Man, if I knew what I know now, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it would have been a much easier and smoother life. I'm sorry I had to learn some of those lessons the hard way. All research. Yeah. I don't recommend this form of research. You can do it the easy way. So in the Course, it says, when you want only love, you will see nothing else. It's like our dreams at night, they come from our wishes. And sometimes they're chaotic wishes, all these things muddled together. And sometimes they're story dreams, even sometimes prophetic dreams. But you can change even prophetic dreams. You dream of a disaster, you have a window open that with your power and heaven's power, you could change that. That's what I found back in the 70s. So now it's like, here, our waking dream, this life, this world, it's a waking dream. And it comes from our desires. It comes from our wishes. And we have some crazy wishes. And we bury that all. But then it comes out as our world, and then we have to deal with it. And seemingly we have no power. And the world doesn't seem to care about us. But it's like we can bring the power. All power is God's power. It's not domination or anything like this. And a lot today, all fear comes from the past. So we're projecting what happened in the 1940s. We're projecting, and many of us had lives back then, and we're projecting, these greatest fears. And a lot of it, if you look at it, it's authority conflict. You can't tell me you telling me what to do. No. You can't tell me what to do. I can tell you what to do, but you can't tell me what to do. And that goes back to early childhood and our issues with our parents. Yeah, I'm sure you loved everything your parents did, right? Right. Well, that will keep that will keep coming up to be healed. And it'll show in many different guises, many different disguises. And it'll give us the opportunity to finally learn that lesson. Because when you learn the lesson, there's peace. Now, it's like, let me say this. Let me ask this. Part of any problem comes from a grievance. You can't have a problem without a grievance. So this is a problem here in the world. Who's the grievance with, Bettina?
God.
God. You think God could do this? From love and life, do you think this could come about? This was our idea about how to be separate. And most people don't realize if you have a grievance toward anyone, you'll have a grievance toward yourself. You'll have guilt in yourself. You have a grievance toward yourself. Otherwise, you just see a call for help. It's no big deal. If you're innocent, you see a call for help. But if you have guilt someplace buried from someplace, then you'll say they deserve to be punished. They're bad. But you're just pointing the finger in the mirror. You know, and if you notice it, one finger's going to God, one finger's going out, but three are going back toward you. Don't fire that pistol. It's loaded. So it's like, so any grievance toward anyone is a grievance toward yourself, is a place. And the thing about a conflict is, especially a great war, is that you crucify yourself. Imagine that. You think, so I feel so hurt, I'm going to get you back. You know, we're going in the wrong direction. The ego's made up of attack and self-attack. You don't have any self-attack, do you, Betty? No, I didn't think so. And the ego's, when you're attacking yourself, the ego's distracting you for somebody who's in dire need of help, even more than you. So if you can just remember that, and it's difficult to remember because a lot of times you're on your knees with the pain. Who needs my help? And you pour love through the pain to them. And maybe another layer will come up. One of my favorite stories is about how in 1991, I woke up at 2 a.m. and my heart was like, I go, oh my God, it's the big one. Am I on the way out? And I remembered, who needs my help? My father popped into my mind. So I gave love through that terror to my father. And it was great. But as soon as I stopped, it was back. And I said, who else needs my help? And it was my best friend. So I sent love through that terror to him. And that was great. But as soon as I stopped, it was like back. And I said, well, who else needs my help? Lindsay. So there she's asleep next to me. And she'd already trained me. Don't wake me up for any reason. So I just quietly, poured love through the fear to Lindsay. But as soon as I stopped, it was back. I said, well, who else needs my help? And the words came in very clearly, the whole world. And I said, how the hell can I help the whole world? And there was one word, right. And I got up out of bed and I went downstairs and I wrote for the next 6 hours. And I finally gotten through my writing block. And that was 52 books ago. But it's just doing what I can to help everybody. One of the quotes in A Course in Miracles that always caught me, that really struck me was, and what will you do when those, I'm paraphrasing here, when those dying, when those in suffering and on the way to death look at you with eyes that say, you could have helped me. have never been able to get past that. It just, and my all-time favorite quote from the Course is, the ego asks 1,000 questions and has 100 doubts, but God has only one question. Will you help me save the world? And it says salvation is as close as the person next to you. God's made it easy. So to see everyone as part of us. In the Course, it talks about what the Christ is that we're all of humanity. We're all children of God. We're one Christ. And Jesus was the first one to realize that and to bring that into all of our minds. Like when Buddha had his enlightenment, it went into all of our minds. We have a Buddha mind. We have a Christ mind. But we're so attached to everything that we've judged in the world. And see, the thing is, what we see is what we've judged. And I've had the opportunity, being so deep in the mind, to see that so true, and to be able to change the world by changing our mind. It's like, it's all us, but it's all what we judged. So then what we're going to try to get, we think will complete us, will make us happy. We do that with money, relationships, health, everything. We think it's outside us. But those become false gods. Those become idols. And the problem with idols, and we've all read about idols, what we thought would make us happy, it leads to shattered dreams. It leads to disillusionment. It leads to utter disappointment. And then we give up. We don't realize it's this great video game where we can learn and heal and understand and have love. And have love with everybody. The Course says, when you want only love, you will see nothing else. So this looks like a time of great division. One of the best things I reread recently in the Course says, when you're in terror, when you're in a place of, utter problems, where the world seems to be caving in on you, use these words: I will forgive, and this will disappear. In our most chronic problems, in our greatest collective issues, things are put in layers. So you may need to forgive many times, but finally you'll get through the worst of it. The ego will throw, at first, when you start doing this, it throws up its greatest darknesses, its greatest pain, physical, emotional, mental. But if you persist, and remember, you can ask anyone to walk with you. You can ask Christ to walk with you. You can ask Mary. You could ask the Divine Sisterhood or the Divine Brotherhood or Michael, with that flaming sword, illusions get cut away, and you can go through this. One of the things that heals fear is taking the next step. And taking the next step, and taking the next step. If you're in pain, you have some kind of attachment. And, we don't want to lose the world, all our attachments. We're trying to get that need met now, finally. We didn't get it met centuries ago, or last week, or when we were kids. So let me get it met now. We go out seeking, and that's an idol. And when you need it, you can't have it. But when you don't need it, you can have all you want. It's no big deal. Heaven wants to give you everything. Just doesn't want to give you things that hurt you. But if you persist in the wrong way, heaven trusts you. It's okay. This conflict is not a true conflict. It is a conflict, and it's a conflict going on a lot of places in the world. If you have an issue with, it's just like the 40s. It's just like the Nazis. In one of my early workshops in 1977, actually, I was given a stretch. And so I had to act out to give this visionary speech. And then I had to deal with my greatest shadow figure. And intuitively, my greatest shadow figure was Hitler. And of course, I was the sweetest, most loving person I know. But one fella in the workshop had been special forces in Vietnam and had killed people with his bare hands, and and he went first. And when he did that to heal that part of himself, and I got in touch with the Hitler in me. And I cried for 5 hours straight. But I finally released that shadow. So we demonize what we've judged in ourselves. But what would you say is your biggest shadow? Because there's a real easy healing method. Heaven wants it to be easy for us if we would allow it and stop crucifying ourselves. So while you're thinking, go ahead.
You're asking in general, you're not talking.
Yeah, I'm asking you. I'll get back to this, but what would you say?
There's nothing really coming to my mind. Actually.
How about bastards? Have you ever run into any bastards?
I'm not sure.
How many bastards do you have inside? We know you have a couple bitches, but that's just
okay.
20. How
20.
many bastards? 20. You only run into what you think about yourself. So ask the divine sisterhood to march those 20 bastards over to the bridge of transformation. Because when they get about halfway across, the archetypes that these shadows are hiding will pop out. The gifts that these shadows are hiding will pop out. And what pops out?
I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. The pure eternus. Notice the opposite of the jeune fille. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. Pure eternus.
Puer eternus. Yeah, the Latin, the eternal boy. Yeah. Every bastard sent our way, we had promised we would rescue. And it's still, we can still rescue them. But this is a real easy way to get your courage back. To get your mantle of leadership back. And just hear their calls for help. So let me deal with something else now. I talked about these conflicts, these great wars. Okay, so let's do this. What's another great war? How about light and darkness?
3,000.
Yeah. So before we get to the Great War, how many places are you crucifying yourself inside about this Great War?
Every possible part.
How many crucifixions are going on inside just from this Great War?
3,000 again.
3,000. And how many from life and death? Well, let's go get those crucifixions.
300.
And how about vaccinated, unvaccinated? How many?
3 million.
1 million.
3 million.
Yeah, 3 million. So let's call it, how many of those selves that are on the cross, how many have died?
50%.
Half of them have died. Do you have any deadness in your life?
No.
No.
Of course.
Didn't think so, but had to ask. So let's ask the Divine Sisterhood and the Divine Brotherhood to come in and bring all their millions of angels to take you down from the cross. And blow the sacred breath of life into you. And all of these selves, which were from even before this life, all of these selves begin to grow up toward your age now.
A lot going on.
There's a lot going on. And as they step into you, they melt into you, bringing wholeness, reconnecting wires in your heart, your mind, and your body. And this is heaven's will for us, that we find these places and we correct them. They were just mistakes. But the ego says, no, it's a sin and you're going to die for that. Turn this car around, we're going to head for the cliff. You only see yourself. We only see what we think about ourselves. And, we've had thousands of lifetimes and we've done it all. We've been those Nazis. We've been those victims. But now we can invite truth. In the Course, it talks about behind every problem, there's a gift. And behind every grievance, there's a miracle. So you can make a choice. Do I want this problem that comes from, fear and grievance? Or do I want the gift? Do I want a miracle? And we haven't judged the world for anything. Yeah, the world is our judgment. And we can forgive it. That's why we've come here, to really advance in this evolution, in happiness, in love. That's what it's all about. That's what we've come for. So now, this last great war, we still have that one to get over. Let's let the Divine Sisterhood and Brotherhood just lift you up over this split in our mind and carry us forward to peace and freedom. How does that feel? So now, let us keep this in mind. I will forgive and this will disappear. And when the ego is finally gone, all there's left is love. It's not just empty. Because there's something beyond that also. And it's oneness. And that's what heaven is. It's oneness. But we get to have, there's a world, a kind of a paradise that we'll get to before that. That comes with the Christ mind. Heaven on earth. But let's do one more exercise, to help this in the way of healing. Imagine, if you will, that you are being carried by the Divine Sisterhood and Brotherhood. This is their favorite flight pattern, by the way. And they take you outside of time, which was our own invention. They take you outside of time to your creation, which is always going on, where God loved you so much that you began. Imagine being loved that much. And now everything that God is, he shared with you. Limitlessness, innocence, love, power. And all power is of God. The rest is just fear. And real power empowers others. And from here, extend that to the world. God would be incomplete without you. You're vital, you're necessary, you're totally valued. So many issues that I've worked with people recently, they just feel so valueless. But that's not the truth. Every time you give value. And what you give to yourself. So giving, sharing, receiving, all forms of love. And there were times we threw ourselves away. There are times we threw ourselves under the bus. I work with people who threw themselves under the bus so many times it was like the bus had to go uphill to get past them. But you can now send the divine sisterhood and brotherhood to collect you where you threw yourself under the bus. Blow the sacred breath of life into you. It was just a mistake, and it can be corrected now with divine help. So you can come back to this place of creation time and time again where you feel powerless or feel so limited or in pain, and let yourself be comforted. So many times when I was on the road, having this crazy schedule and things like this, and at night I'd just be exhausted, and I would ask like Christ to hold me, or Mary to hold me, or Kuan Yin to hold me, or my brother Buddha to hold me. And I'd wake up refreshed and ready to go in the morning. Our mind is going 24/7. So the Course suggests we turn our mind over to the Holy Spirit, and we turn our body and our ego over to Christ. And anytime I get a nudge of pain or anything, I want to remember to do that. So to find our way together. These are ways I've found that work for me. I've found that as consciousness grows, we start up very dependent and we get wounded because people didn't live up to our expectations and do it our way. And, we felt so privileged. And then we go independent or stay a victim, which that's the worst part, or get really independent and dissociated, and we cut off our heart and cut off our emotional body, cut off our ability to feel, cut off our sexuality. But if we get through that, we move into partnership, interdependence. And if you can partner enough with anyone, could be your mom, could be your brother, could be, your partner, because there's always distance that will come up, even if you've had a great slippery celebration with your partner and it's, you're just all in love, but then the next morning you wake up and you go, who is that? Because all of the separation, the distance will keep coming up. And the key is to always keep joining, no matter what has triggered it. And whenever something's stopping you, to ask yourself this question: what's the purpose of this? What do I want to come of this? But what am I using it for now? So, Betty, if I ask you, what are you using all this fear and conflict for? What are you using it for?
Asking myself this. I found it.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that Austria sucks.
That's your home.
Yeah, this.
You chose that as the perfect place to grow up and learn your lessons.
Yeah, but living in a foreign country for so many years, and so.
Yeah. Well, every country has their worst problems and their greatest gifts. Every country in the world. Having traveled as I have, I've learned that. So, yeah. So
bad that all the newspapers are writing about us again.
Well, sure. That makes newsprint, but it could be worse. So there's one healing metaphor I've been using in the last 6 months, and it talks about the altar of God. Did God create this mess? So does it really exist? Or is it an ego illusion, a fabrication to keep itself strong and keep itself righteous? Because righteousness hides wrongsomeness, it hides guilt. And we're always attacking how we used to be. That deserves compassion and healing and forgiveness, rather than when you've totally forgiven yourself, you'll see heaven on earth. You'll see a forgiven world. Wow. And so, we'll keep seeing all the places we haven't forgiven ourselves. So anyhow, one of the healing metaphors, and there's another similar to this, but it's called the altar of God. And so when you throw something on the altar of God that he didn't create, guess what happens to it? The illusion just dissolves. I call it God's barbecue, God's Barbie. So if you don't like it, throw it on the Barbie, because God wants to help you out. But if you persist in a path that will lead to pain or to death, God trusts you. He knows you're eternal. He created you that way. He knows at some point you'll finally get it, but why not now? Why go through all the judgment? From judgment comes all the suffering of the world. And judgment comes as an attempt to get rid of our guilt and put it on somebody else. Heilige Scheiße. It's like all we see is ourselves. And that's why it's so much fun to love people and to get over ourselves and our sense of privilege, and it should be this way, and our righteousness, which again hides our wrongsomeness. Conflict comes from needs. They're holding back what will make me happy and save me. And so I can attack them. Whoops. We fight to support our egos. We fight to be right. We fight to get our way. But most of all, we fight because we're afraid of the next step. We're afraid of the vision. We're afraid of the mastery. And Love heals fear. Helping heals fear. Forgiveness heals fear. So there is a way. Because as dark as a place we've gotten ourselves into, that's not God's will for us. God's will is perfect happiness for us. Let's embrace that. Let's share that. Anything else you want to ask or deal with? Or
Yeah, I have some concrete questions, as I told you,
Yes.
from some people,
Yeah.
and I know that even though they did those exercises, still there, some of them will have those questions: vaccination or not vaccination, which is
What does God want for you?
happiness.
Yeah. And so how does vaccination or non-vaccination fit into that?
Not.
What's true?
Doesn't fit into that. It's not existing.
Yeah. It's not existing. And some people will go, oh, okay, I feel called to get vaccinated. And others will say, no, I feel called to go this path. And sometimes that path doesn't work out. And sometimes the path of getting vaccinated is just a path where people use it to be, I'm right and you're wrong, and things like this. But it's all a lesson heaven would have us learn. So let's learn it. I know before the interview, you talked about pregnant women getting vaccinated. All the research that I've read and heard about says it doesn't affect the baby. So, and that's a great fear. Of course, any mother would be frightened of that particular thing. So
Exactly. This is
let's heal our fear and see the way.
This is especially one question that I wanted to mention, that she is pregnant right now, and she's non-vaccinated, and she's having fear, making a mistake, which I wouldn't forgive myself, or which my outside wouldn't forgive me, if there would happen something to the baby. This enormous pressure from myself and from outside, and the burden of trying to be right is so difficult to take. So how can I trust and be able to go into full connection again with safety, security, and comfort?
So bring up, see, all of our minds are connected. So bring up this woman in your mind. So first of all, to get through your fear, who would you be called to forgive?
Mom.
So would you forgive mom? Because you're a mom. And who are you called to help?
My baby.
So would you pour your love to your baby through all of this fear? Yeah, easy. Would you take all of the doubt and all of the question and throw it on God's Barbie? Are things any clearer for you?
Yes.
Good. Good. Yeah. Each we've given our greatest power. There's a line in the Course that says, of all the gifts you've been given, only one is left. And it's the power of choice. And that can bring back all the others, all the other gifts. And when you get past interdependence, there's radical dependence, where you become like a little child to enter the kingdom of heaven. You recognize your total dependence on the Creator. And so you become, I don't know the answer. What's the answer? You know, you listen, you get a quiet mind and you listen. Do whatever brings you peace, and then you listen. One of my favorite meditations when my mind is really doing a lot of, the Olympics ping pong match finals, is to watch my mind, and every thought that comes by, every thought, good, bad, it doesn't matter, because it's all ego. It's like this thought reflects a goal that's keeping me from my purpose and my destiny. This thought reflects a goal. And if you do that for about 15 to 20 minutes, your mind becomes like this placid lake. And then you ask for the answer. And then you can hear the answer finally, because when you're that stressed, when you're that fearful, you can't hear anything. So
thank you. In the name of Austria and the world.
Yeah, peace is so important, because in the state of war, fear becomes the only reality. And the war is within us. There was an old hymn that I used to love, which was, "Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me." Our mind is connected to the whole world, to everyone in it. So to be happy, to love ourselves, and then to forgive ourselves. When you've forgiven yourself, there's no one that will need forgiveness, because you'll see a forgiven world. We only see our past selves. People who have trouble with their mothers and fathers, one of the things that I ask them is, how many lifetimes have you been just like your mother? Betty, how many?
3.
And how many just like your father?
5.
Yeah. And in 3 lifetimes and 5 lifetimes, there's a lot of stuff you haven't forgiven yourself for. And you, in this life, wanted them as your family so that you could finally integrate them, forgive them, heal yourself, bring back this wholeness, which eventually becomes holiness, which means that you don't need anything out there, because it's all in here. And then you can just share it and get happier. And to be a happy pirate woman. Yeah, hand over the chocolate and nobody gets hurt.
Exactly. Chocolate understands.
Yes, we can see that. Yes. So
thank you very, very much.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And it's like, just share the love. Let that be all you want, because that will give you everything. It will give you everything. And it'll heal all the fear, and it'll let you lead the way and help everybody around you. You become the rock that everybody can depend on, because your rock is heaven.
Thank you so much for being our
Yeah,
rock.
you're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Have a very good, great weekend. Kisses to Lancy again.
Thank you. I will pass it on.
Being with us. See
Okay.
you soon.
See you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.